The NFL playoffs just gave us something that's never happened in its 103-year history: a defensive two-point conversion, a SpongeBob curse, and a rookie receiving record all in the same weekend. Let's break down this wild ride.
Speaking of wild, that Texans Chargers game was absolutely bonkers. The moment Jim Harbaugh got swallowed by that cartoon bubble on the Nickelodeon broadcast, everything fell apart for Los Angeles. They went from down by 4 to losing by 20.
You know what's even more fascinating? Rookie Lad McConkey wasn't even supposed to be the primary receiver in that game plan, but after putting up 192 yards, he now holds a playoff record that stood for over 3 decades.
The way the Texans transformed from a 3-13 team last year to dominating a playoff game, that's the kind of turnaround you usually only see in movies.
And speaking of transformations, how about that Ravens ground attack? Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry combining for over 260 rushing yards against a usually stout Steelers defense. That's like trying to tackle two freight trains at once.
Hmm. What really stands out to me is how they're succeeding with this old school approach in a pass heavy league. Do you think this could start a trend back toward power running games?
Well, when you look at the numbers, teams that rushed for over 200 yards this season won 82% of their games. But here's the thing: Josh Allen just showed us why the passing game isn't going anywhere, throwing for 272 yards with a broken hand in that 31-7 dismantling of Denver.
That's exactly what makes this playoff picture so fascinating. We're seeing success with completely opposite approaches.
You know what really caught my attention? The Eagles-Packers game exposed some serious concerns about Jalen Hurts post-concussion. His completion percentage dropped by 15 points compared to his season average.
Thank goodness for Saquon Barkley stepping up with those 119 rushing yards, but facing that Rams defense next week, the same one that just tied a playoff record with 9 sacks, that's going to be a whole different challenge.
Let's talk about that Commanders-Buccaneers finish because, oh my goodness, that bounce off the upright field goal to end a 19-year playoff drought? You couldn't script it better. The probability of a field goal going in after hitting the upright is less than 2%.
And to think that rookie Jaden Daniels led that final drive with the poise of a 10-year veteran. His heart rate monitor showed he was actually calmer during that drive than during pregame warm-ups.
Looking ahead to the divisional round, we've got some fascinating statistical matchups. The Chiefs have won 84% of their home playoff games under Andy Reid, but these Texans are riding a 6-game winning streak where they've outscored opponents by an average of 13.5 points.
The weather forecasts for these games are pretty wild, too. Potential snow in Buffalo and sub-zero temperatures in Kansas City.
That Buffalo weather could actually favor the Ravens' ground game, even though the Bills have won their last 7 home playoff games. The analytics show running efficiency only drops 4% in snow, while passing efficiency can drop up to 18%.
So, what you're saying is Mother Nature might have more influence on these games than the coaches?
Well, considering that dome teams like the Lions are 3-12 in outdoor playoff games since 2010, environmental factors definitely play a huge role. But Detroit hosting their first playoff game in 30 years? That crowd noise could be a difference maker.
The decibel levels at Ford Field have already broken records this season. They actually registered a small seismic event during their last home game.
Looking at the bigger picture, this weekend represents a fascinating clash between old and new NFL philosophies. We've got power running versus air raids, rookie quarterbacks versus veterans, and traditional offenses versus modern schemes.
And after everything we saw in the wild card round, from cartoon curses to miracle bounces, it feels like anything could happen.
Well, one thing's for certain, we'll be back next week to break down what promises to be another historic weekend of playoff football. Until then, keep your eyes on both the field and the Nickelodeon broadcast. You never know which cartoon character might change NFL history next.